Now let's look into the hot deck imputation method. Hot deck imputation is a method used to fill missing values in a data set by borrowing values from similar or nearby observations. So hot deck imputation method works in such a way that it will fill missing values in a data set by borrowing values from similar or nearby observations. It's a type of imputation technique that imputes missing values based on the values of similar data points within the same data set without using any external reference data. The basic idea of hot deck imputation is to find the nearest neighbors of the observation with missing values and then use the values of those neighbors to fill in the missing values. Hot deck imputation is a form of nearest neighbor imputation where the nearest neighbors are determined based on similarity measures such as distance, similarity score, or other relevant criteria. Let me put it here. Hot deck imputation. So nearest neighbors are determined based on similarity measures such as first one is distance, similarity score, and other relevant criteria. Okay, so now let's look into the hot deck imputation process. Let's look into the hot deck imputation process. So step by step. So first, as usual, let's identify the missing values in the time series data or any data set. It could be a time series data or just a data set. It doesn't need to be a time series data, any data set. Okay, let me replace that. Any data set. Okay, then the first step is to identify observations with missing values in the data set, and this is the condition. These are the three columns and these are the values which are missing in respective columns. Then second step, step 2, for each observation with missing values, find the nearest neighbors among the complete observations in the data set. The number of nearest neighbors to consider can be predefined or determined dynamically based on a specified criteria. That could be distance, one criteria. Then, once the nearest neighbors are identified, use their values to fill in the missing values in the observation with missing values. This can be done by randomly selecting one or more of the nearest neighbor values by averaging or weighing the values of the nearest neighbors. Then repeat the process for all observations with missing values until all missing values are imputed. So this is what a hot deck imputation. Let's take a very simple example. Okay, so let me call upon df. Okay, this is our data set. Let me bring this one. So import pandas as pd, numpy as np, and This is our data set with null values, or just a minute. Yeah, it's taking some time to respond. Yeah. Yep. So this is what is our data set. These are the values or missing values which has to be filled. So now let's iterate through each row in the data frame. In the data frame, so for I, row in df dot iter rows, this is the function, this is the method I'm using, iter rows. Then next thing we have to do is in zero block, in the first block, check if the row has any missing values. That's what my next step. So for that, if row dot, I'm gonna go for the is null and anything else, any is null, any. Then let's find the nearest neighbors for the row. Neighbors is equal to df dot iloc I minus 1 and I plus 2, and I drop so iloc and then I drop na. Okay, so then let's use the values of the nearest neighbor. Let's use the values of the nearest neighbors to fill in the missing values. So for column in df dot columns, if pd dot is null, row of column and then df dot at I comma col is equal to, at that location put the neighbors sample of 1. So sample of 1 col dot values 0. So that's what is our data point. So that's it. This is the for loop we have applied. Now let's come out of the for loop and then nested loops. Let's print data frame after hot deck imputation, then print df, and here is your data frame after hot deck imputation. These are the missing values and these are the replaced value. 2 has been replaced with the 2 and this one has been replaced with the 5 and this value has been replaced with the 11. So that's it. So in this example we iterate through each row in the data frame and check if the row has any missing values. If a row has missing values, we find the nearest neighbors by selecting the previous and next rows and then use the values of the nearest neighbors to fill in the missing values in the row. So in this case, we randomly sample a value from the nearest neighbors to fill in the missing values, but other methods such as averaging or weighted imputation could also be depending on the specific requirements of the problem. So this is a hot deck imputation. So hot deck imputation can be applied to various types of data, including numerical data and categorical data. So the choice of similarity measure, number of nearest neighbors to consider, and method of imputing values can be customized based on the characteristics of the data set and then specific problem being addressed.